So they actually, it's fascinating. They have two layers of AI. There's a machine learning level where they're actually able, with a phone camera, to in a 60-second facial scan, establish a full set of vitals for a patient, and then take the data from the facial scan and feed it through the second layer of the deep learning component, which then harnesses all of that clinical data in patients and a selection of studies that sort of analyze metrics. Putting it together, the output of that is real time analysis of a person's future risk, and it will say, we'll give you here's your 10-year risk of developing Parkinson's disease, or your 10-year risk of having heart disease or heart attack, and all of that can come from a simple facial scan.
Welcome to this episode of the MedTech 101 podcast, and I'm quite excited about this because for the first time I have a plastic surgeon on the podcast who has also gone on to start a company which we will be touching on shortly. But Dr. Cory Goldberg, really, I think you spent a lot of time in university, because when I was going through your background, I saw you did physiology, like a 3-year degree in physiology. I think a 2-year degree, for masters for biomedical engineering and plastic surgery for like another 6 years, all at the University of Toronto. But he also did his medicine and MBA at Queen's University. So that's a lot of time spent at school. So, but it's great. It's great. But I'm happy to have you today, Doctor. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Rodney. It's my pleasure, and looking forward to our conversation. I look back at the years in school. It honestly didn't seem like that much. School is a privilege, and actually, I'm looking forward one day. I really hope to go back and do a PhD when I have a chance. And that's one of my objectives in my own healthy longevity is to keep that going.
Good. And just a quick question on that, because you've taken quite several parts. Would the PhD be for medicine, or will it be for like biomedical engineering, or since you've done several routes, or even business? Which one would you
It's
choose?
a it's a good question, Rodney. And honestly, the reality is I'm not sure yet. I'm still formulating my question, and I think it will have to do with healthy longevity, and it may come at it from a more biomed side or a more technology side. But I'm not sure yet. Einstein said it best. I think if you're gonna get an hour to solve a problem, you should spend the first 55 minutes at least figuring out the question, and the last 5 minutes figuring out the answer. So I'm going to take my time figuring out the right question.
Nice, nice. It's good you use that analogy, because the other analogy that I know linked to that is like sharpen your axe for 55 minutes and spend 5 minutes cutting down the tree, then trying to chop
Yeah,
down the tree with a blunt axe. So it's also another analogy linked directly to
that's a
that.
great analogy. I love that one. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. So no, nice. And so yeah, just to kick it off then, because I'm really honored to have you today on the podcast, looking at the journey you've done to this point. What could you tell us in terms of like how life has been for you? What made you study medicine, and the path that has led you to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's I guess first off, my father was a surgeon. He was a vascular surgeon in Toronto, Canada, which is where I'm based out of as well. And so I really, medicine was a kind of in my veins, as they say, and I wanted to be a surgeon. When I got into medical school, I realized that plastic surgery was a really interesting kind of surgery because it involves, all different tissue types, and it involves anatomy from the head to toe, and it's not just fixed on one thing, and it also is more subjective. There's more creativity and principle use rather than just step by step, completing an operation. Like a joint replacement is very methodical, and challenging, but the same steps over and over. So plastic surgery is variable. It requires a lot of thought and applying of principles and using creativity. So that's how I got started in plastic surgery. And I went on. I did another year of training in pediatric craniofacial surgery, and learned how to do cleft lip and cleft palate and those kinds of things. And I have my master's of applied science in stem cell, research and tissue engineering. So when I started in practice, I kind of started doing a little bit more research on health related things, reactive oxygen species, and that kind of fit into my surgical practice and how I looked after my patients. And that kind of led me to asking more questions about how are we delivering healthcare to our patients? how are we looking after surgical patients, and improving that recovery and the journey, and that kind of brought me to health and healthy longevity. And that's, the past few years of my life really has pushed towards that. And in my own life, I've suffered loss. I lost my father. As I mentioned, he was a surgeon. I think his career was ended early and his lifespan cut short because of health issues that I think could have been avoided years earlier, by early identification and prevention. So to me, this is a very personal journey to sort of go down a more healthy path myself, and also be able to provide that to my patients and the world at large.
Nice, nice. That's really deep. You say that because I think um, most sort of like treatments will be mostly like we have a higher efficacy if people were treated as individuals instead of like using sort of like the blanket green card that or whatever card they get to kind of check the symptoms because we're all different. No other human is identical, even for biological twins, right? So and that's why like now you've started Healthspan Digital, which is also focusing on personalized medicine. But we're gonna come back to that in the meantime. But I'm kind of curious to know more about like what your life is like as a plastic surgeon. Because I know, like you said, your dad was a vascular surgeon, so I guess surgery runs in the family, which is great to hear. And I'm sorry to hear of your loss, or your dad's loss. But at least I would like to believe that he's also part of the reason why you became a plastic surgeon. So what is life like? Because I mean, for most people, like most of my friends that I told that you're coming on the podcast prior to this, they were like, oh, like a plastic surgeon. They were just thinking automatically of Hollywood, perfecting people's looks, the aesthetics or it's like they say plastic surgery is some form of art within medicine because you really have to work with each individual person, make sure that the contouring or whatever you do blends in well. So, like, how's life as a plastic surgeon, Dr. Corey?
The Well, first off, Rodney, thank you very much for your sentiments around my father. It's appreciated, and I think you're absolutely right. He was a big driver in me becoming a surgeon, and I mean, he was. I mean, I'm biased, but I can say he was a very gifted surgeon and an incredible human. And we carry forward those things that we learn from the people that come before us. And so I'm really fortunate to have that knowledge set and those skills that he gave me, because it definitely is a part of how I treat my patients and a part of my career. And I look after my patients. I guess I try to look after them as if they're my own father, my own mother, or my family. It's a very personal relationship with my patients, and I think that's led me to a little bit of a different path than some plastic surgeons or the aesthetic industry as a whole. I really think that the cosmetic industry, the aesthetic industry, plastic surgery, over the past decade or two, it's gone down a slippery slope, and it's gotten to a point where I don't think it's very healthy. We offer people treatment at the end of a needle or a scalpel as just the standard, and it's become younger and younger and more commonplace, to a point where it's almost expected that you have something done, and the results that are being achieved, they're no longer natural things that enhance someone's appearance. They're actually altering them and making them look different. And so I think that we've actually, as an industry, changed what beauty. We've redefined it, and I really think that that's been very harmful. So one of my missions in this is alongside of bringing healthy longevity to people, I also really want to help the beauty aesthetic industry go through the next evolution, which will be exactly this kind of thing. It will be precision care, it will be preventive care, and it will be a holistic care that actually helps people achieve beauty through health. And so, my day to day right now, still, I still operate. I'm still in the operating room. I still do minor procedures. I remove some skin cancers and minor things like that. And in the operating room, I'll do facial procedures. I do a lot of face things because I have a craniofacial fellowship. So I do a lot of facelifts. I do some very deep chemical peels and things. So I still do cosmetic work, but I try to sort of fit that in with my patients as far as counseling and getting them access to tools that allow a more holistic approach to their beauty. And I'm hoping to be able to grow that model and offer it to more places around the world, as far as being able to change how the aesthetic industry approaches things in general.
Nice, nice. That's really nice to hear because I think, yes, you're right. The beauty standards have been redefined over the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so, and they keep going up and down, right? So at one moment being big in certain areas is good, and then the trends also change, and now you have to be small in the same area. So you find that you constantly have to be going to like the surgeon to say getting surgery. So some people actually develop like some sort of like plastic surgery addiction, and I was really happy to hear that now you're focusing on actually trying to maintain like a natural aesthetic look in people, because I think that's sends a huge message to anyone listening today in terms of their views of plastic surgery, because it's not only for cosmetic purposes to make someone look better, but it also helps people a lot after maybe an accident or other things. So it's quite a much bigger area of medicine that helps people self-identity, self-confidence more than the average first thought might be. So
you know,
yeah.
honestly, Rodney, I completely agree with you. And you know, it's there's a difference between cosmetic and aesthetic, where cosmetic is looking to enhance someone or bringing them closer to an ideal, where aesthetic is about restoring normal. And you know, honestly, I think both are very valuable. In a way, I kind of think of myself as a surgical psychologist. You know, when people come to me looking for a cosmetic enhancement, if I can deliver, if there's something that just doesn't they don't feel good about, you know, by changing one small thing, whether it's, you know, adjusting their nose or making them feel a little bit younger, or a mom after having a couple of kids restoring their body and their breasts, those things are life changing. I mean, that can be a part of a huge weight loss, a huge health transition. I mean, I've shared, you know, my own personal story many times. I had my own health transformation in 2010 after I started my practice a few years earlier. I realized I was in a very unhealthy state, and I was trying to teach my patients to be healthy and do surgery, and I myself was overweight and unhealthy. So I made a decision to start changing, and I lost 50 pounds. I started eating healthy and working out, and you know, that took me 2 years. And at the end of the 2 years, I still had some areas on my chest where there was extra tissue that I couldn't get rid of with weight loss, and I actually had a cosmetic surgery myself, a gynecomastia. It's a male breast reduction. I had one of my colleagues do that, and you know, honestly, it was transformative for me, and it helped me to understand the value that I give to my patients when I do those sorts of things. So you know, in establishing exactly as you said, you know, self confidence, self esteem. If I can help someone restore a little bit of that, so that they face the world a little bit differently, man, that changes everything for them, and it can change their social life. It changes their work. So, I mean, it's an immense tool, and I feel very privileged to be able to do that because I get to know people very closely, and I'm a part of like a really immense journey for them. And I mean, it's such a joy. I mean, I love seeing that. Afterwards, it's like the most uplifting thing.
Nice, nice. I'm happy to hear that. Really, and it's good work that you're doing. I mean, I had a look at your Instagram. Again, I'll be putting your Instagram below this episode so people can go and check out your work. And I think it's really good to see the patients how happy they become and everything. But like moving on to the next question that I had. Is like your time, your philanthropic works in Bolivia. Like, could you tell us how that came about and what took you to Bolivia out of all the places in the world to go do
For
philanthropy?
sure. Well, the I mean, my fellowship that I had mentioned that I did in California was pediatric craniofacial surgery and cleft lips and palates. When I returned to Toronto, I took on a more adult sort of trauma job, but I still have the skills of doing cleft lip and palate surgery. So shortly after I entered practice, I started to work with a group called Operation Smile. And Operation Smile, it's an American-based group, and they send missions to over 40 countries around the world to do cleft lip and palate surgery. And so I've actually been on several missions. I went to Honduras and Cambodia. I've been to Egypt. Bolivia was the most recent, so that was just last year. And I actually went down with my wife, Stephanie. She is an administrator and a health professional herself. So she ran the medical records department while I operated. So it was an amazing experience. Bolivia, it's, I mean, a fascinating place. It's, you know, the poorest of the South American countries. And we were in a place called Sierra de la Santa Cruz. And it was, I mean, a very impoverished city. So we had, you know, lots of people from around the whole country that had gathered to, you know, come for the opportunity to have this kind of surgery done. So, I mean, it's a very fulfilling way to use my skill set, and it's a, you know, really important way to keep grounded, to you know, really remember why I got into this in the first place, and to be able to do that with my wife and sort of share that experience is really magical.
Nice, nice. That's really good. It seems like it's a good team. It's like a teamwork between you and your wife. So that's really great. I think that's what everyone wants. And I mean, it's quite touching, really, because I think people sometimes we tend to underestimate the availability of or access to good. Medical care. So it's quite nice when you go to these remote places, making it easier for more people to access there's sort of like life changing like surgeries. And I think in Bolivia you were doing like, is it like the cleft lip surgery, which also which goes a long way. And I think just to simplify that for people listening, is it's a condition some people have when they're born with, like, I think the upper lip or one of their lips not connected. So it's like, and they need that surgery. And I think it has to do with how the baby develops, like in your mom's tummy. Basically everyone, how everyone develops together. So sometimes some people unfortunately that they're born with that. So you can imagine how life changing this is. It's not something it's a small surgery, but it's got a huge impact on someone's life. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
It's a pleasure, Rodney. Honestly, I couldn't have said it better. You hit it right on the head. It is a very minor surgery. It takes an hour and a half maybe to do a cleft lip repair, and I mean it's very technically challenging. It requires a lot of thought. It's definitely the most complex operation I know how to do, but fundamentally it's pretty simple. I mean, I've done it under local anesthetic on some adults who have not been able to have surgery as children, but it's life changing. I mean, it changes everything for them, and getting at them early so that they can develop and develop language skills and eating and such for nutrition. It's I mean it's life altering. So I mean I really love to be able to do that.
Nice, great. And yeah, then like moving on to like your company, you started Healthspan Digital, which has got an exciting model, but I don't wanna spoil it for the audience. I want you to talk about it. Like what is Healthspan Digital about? Because what I can spoil to the audience is that you got an office in Toronto and an office in Abu Dhabi, which are quite a bit miles away, but one is really hot and one is really cold. But besides that, like, what's the company about? And
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're kind of I would almost call it a virtual company. The concept of HealthSpan Digital is to offer longevity as a service. So the realization that we came to as the founders together, we recognized that there was a lot of amazing technology coming around healthy longevity. And that that includes AI and digital assets. It includes supplements, therapies, and different ways of collecting data on patients. All these tools. There is so much. It's very difficult for any practitioner or business to offer these services because they don't know what to bring in. The pace of change is so great. Even a physician wouldn't understand a lot of this stuff, and medical school curriculum is not changing quickly enough. So, without those tools available, without someone to organize it, there's no real way to launch this. So what we've decided was we were going to create a company which is B2B. It's where we sell to businesses longevity tools so that they can offer longevity to their patients. And that could be to anybody. It could be to healthcare workers. It can be to clinics and healthcare systems in countries. It could also be to aesthetic clinics or plastic surgery clinics or even gyms and fitness centers. So any place where someone could be engaged to improve their health, we offer services. And one of the most interesting of our sort of verticals that I'm passionate about is real estate. Most people don't think of their home as being an extension of their health, but actually it's totally integrated with you, whether it's the lighting, the electromagnetic, the spectrum, the water quality, the air quality, all of that together. Your home is an extension of your health and also a potential tool to measure and see how you're doing. So, in Healthspan Digital, our objective is to bring together all of the best tools that we can find around the world, collect them, and and empower businesses to use them in all of these verticals. And so, Dubai, we launched a clinic in Dubai in January, and it's not our clinic; it's a clinic that's using our tools. We also have, in the past 2-3 months, we've launched a clinic in Athens, and we have a clinic coming in Toronto, which is actually going to open up next month. And so we're looking to grow and offer these tools to anybody who wants to do longevity and offer to their clients or patients.
Nice. And just out of curiosity, what does one two look like? Because I know you, of course, you mentioned that, for example, someone's house is an extension of their health, and this goes a long way actually. Because obviously, I lived in the UK for about 8 years, and one of the issues that people had, like in the winters, was like, for instance, like mold growing in their house, for example. So sometimes people underestimate the impacts of mold, like growing in your house in terms of respiratory illnesses and like health. So but with one of your tools, for example, someone in a cold country and everything, or let's even say Dubai, for example, what does the tool look like? Is it a digital tool? Is it like a handheld tool that people take? What does a tool look like for someone who walks into your clinic and they want to like have one of these services? What does that look like, that experience?
For sure. Well, let's why don't we talk about the example that you came up with, the mold, because I think that's a very good one. In homes, mold and bacteria are huge determinants of your health. And you don't generally think of it, but your heating, ventilation, air conditioning system is full of that stuff. And depending if the humidity in your home goes too high, or if there are particular bacteria in the air, they will collect in the filters and in the system and grow. So there's actually a microbiome, the sort of collection of bacteria in the air that you breathe at home or your office space, and it can be sampled. So there's a company that we work with called Poppy, and Poppy is a Canadian company. And they actually have a system that can measure air in different places in homes, in commercial space, and sample it and actually make changes and recommendations around improving air quality and reducing bacterial load and mold. So that's one of the technologies that we can bring to real estate or to companies that want to have their own healthy longevity. For example, a lot of corporations are looking to improve the health of their employees or their executives. So that would be a tool that you could bring to your physical office space, where your staff are working. So that's one specific tool to address air quality. If someone was to walk into a clinic space that offers this overall package of services, the first thing that you would do is sort of get taken in as far as gathering data about you, and that data. There's a lot of data that can be gathered about a person. Your genomics, your genetic sequence would be one thing. Your epigenetics, which is sort of a measure of how your DNA is folding and how it's aging. There's a lot of biomarkers and blood work that can be taken in, but there's very simple things. There's a physiology lab. So most longevity clinics will have a physiology lab, which will measure your use of oxygen in your lungs. It can measure your blood flow. It would measure your retinas and look at your eyes. So all these tools can take in information about you, and then the next step would be to put that through our data analytic tools, and then come out with recommendations and ways that people can actually address their own health. And that can be at a clinic, that can be in an app with the patient would be able to follow on their own. So all of those tools can be put together, and what we offer, I look at it's like a menu. It's like an a la carte. To a clinic, they may choose one thing or another, and it would be kind of up to them to decide what they think their patients want the most. And we can offer protocols and all these tools and help assemble and start it. And so really, what you would get when you walk into the clinic, and what you asked is, it really depends on the clinic and what they want to offer you. But that's a rough idea of what you would see there.
Wow, that's amazing. And just to put this in even more layman terms, just so that the audience can understand the impact of this, is, for example, you mentioned the word biomarkers. The biomarkers are basically um, part of our genetics. Everyone has their own kind of certain DNA and everything, um, and so looking at that, it's like looking at that sort of like fingerprint in each person. And sometimes when you look at that, it can help doctors predict, for example, in even in cancer treatments and stuff for chemotherapy, to see which type of combination of drugs would work for you, or for any types of illnesses, actually, because everyone's body, in terms of how they react to certain things, can be influenced by those factors in terms of that build out genetics. So basically, what you're saying is that the market for this is basically 8 billion people or 9 billion people. Everyone on the planet can make use of this technology. So it's massive. It's massive. It's going to be revolution. I think I actually want one myself, so I'll probably see what I can get and do like a product review, so that people can even see more what you guys are offering, just using air quality in the house and kind of then knowing what we should do, what we shouldn't. So that's massive, really. But then like it touches on the topic that we're talking about, which is essentially like personalized medicine. Before we even go deeper into looking at how you guys are doing this with AI and sort of like quantum, sort of like technology, like what is personalized medicine? Like just to get the definitions out of the way, Dr. Corey.
Yeah, so I think you were touching on it just now in your discussion about genomics. I mean, personalized medicine is really about delivering care to the individual. The current form of healthcare that we have is based on broad studies. It's evidence based, and evidence based medicine is this current standard. And way better than what it used to be, where you would just observe and say, well, I think it should be this or that. When scientific method came in, it changed how we deliver care to people. But studies that are done, they are done on very homogenous populations. I mean, they specifically look for males between age 20 and 35 to do an experiment on, because they don't want a lot of noise. They don't want individual variation, because that would ruin the study. So the conclusions that come from those studies, it's as homogenous and statistically significant as could be, and they come to a good conclusion. But that conclusion is only relevant to white males from 20 to 35 who don't have any other medical problems, and everybody else, to heck with us. So but we apply those tools. I mean, those tools get applied to everybody, even though they don't work for everybody. So precision medicine, personalized medicine, is really about getting past that. Studies in scientific method are important. It allows us to identify tools and what we can offer and what's safe. But then the next step is to, instead of taking something from a broad study and an average finding, instead we go to the individual person and we sample their genetic sequence and say, okay, because of your genetic sequence, we recognize these fingerprints. You process medications differently. You have the following issues that would cause heart disease more than another person, and it requires this special treatment. And personalized medicine allows us, therefore, to address someone's individual needs. And a part of that is a preventive component too, because personalized medicine allows us to look at an individual and see where they're at today before they're sick, and say, okay, this is your genomics. These are your biomarkers, the different blood levels of proteins and measurements of glycation and glucose in your cells. When you look at all that together, you can come up with a plan for somebody and say, these are your risks for the future, and this is what we can do today for you personally to address those, so that you don't have a heart attack 20 years from now. People have heart attacks and things like that all the time, and the story is almost always the same. It's that person X was healthy, they played tennis, they did this, and they were doing great, and I don't know, suddenly out of nowhere they got a heart attack. How did it even happen? I don't know. But you know what? Those things are predictable. I mean, literally 10 or 20 years early, you can see those things starting to develop. And personalized medicine is about figuring that out and giving people those preventive treatments before they have the heart attack, not waiting till they have one and then putting, some stent in their heart to hold a blood vessel open. It's about really doing something for the individual today.
Nice, nice. That's really good because you touched on two things there which are really big. So not only is personalized medicine helping people get the right medicine, the right prescription, etc. It's also working as part of what's also called preventative medicine, which essentially some people pay every year to get their blood tested and everything to see where they are, to kind of see where their life is going, and that's also part of the longevity. This group of people that are wanting to live as long as possible. I don't know if you know about those that sort of like urban tribe within the US, which came out of like the Silicon Valley area, where all this kind of readings and people are trying to measure, okay, I should be sleeping this much per day, I should be doing this, etc., so I can prolong my life. And that's also a form of personalized medication. And but I think like the buzzword nowadays, like AI, I think it's on everyone's mind. Everyone's thinking, okay, cool, what can we use AI for, etc. And that's one of the big things happening in medtech at the minute. Because I remember on our call last week or 2 weeks ago, we're talking about how digital health, telemedicine, AI. are basically driving sort of like the main next wave of medtech. And so, like, how exactly is AI and quantum technology helping you guys in terms of reaching your goal of personalizing people's medicine?
Well, taking a step back, I'd say in
Mhm.
the bigger picture, as far as healthy longevity, AI is playing a huge role in research and development because it allows analysis of vast quantities of data regarding proteins, peptides, and their effect on cells. The human biology is immensely complex. And so AI is a really important tool on the research development side of things to analyze the impact of various molecules and treatments on human biology. So there's a huge role there. In terms of what we're doing practically with patients, the way we're applying AI is actually more on the data analysis side and establishing interfaces with patients. So, one of the tools that we have, which I think is a really amazing piece of software, is an AI tool called Mia Health. Mia Health is MIA, Mia Health. It's from a company called AI Nexus. And AI Nexus has taken a vast amount of data. They have a relationship with the Mayo Clinic in the United States, and they were actually able to get it's a 10 million charts that they got and 10 years of data. So 10 years of data, 10 million charts, and they use that to develop a deep learning model of analysis for future risk. So they actually, it's fascinating. They have two layers of AI. There's a machine learning level where they're actually able, with a phone camera, to in a 60-second facial scan, establish a full set of vitals for a patient, and then take the data from the facial scan and feed it through the second layer of the deep learning component, which then harnesses all of that clinical data in patients and a selection of studies that sort of analyze metrics. Putting it together, the output of that is real time analysis of a person's future risk, and it will say, will give you here's your 10-year risk of developing Parkinson's disease, or your 10-year risk of having heart disease or a heart attack. And all of that can come from a simple facial scan. And in addition to that, it can analyze for skin cancer and changes in the skin. It can be used for aesthetic purposes with measurements and ratios. And so AI Nexus, I think, is a remarkable company. It's one of the ways that it's being employed now is not, this is not just about the Silicon Valley people, right? This is about democratizing care for the world. This is about bringing a new version of healthcare to the globe. And so AI Nexus is actually launched in India, in Bangalore. There was a pilot project that's now been expanded, and 1 million people have access to this tool. And they scan themselves. A physician can actually look after 100,000 patients and ping them. They actually get told to scan their faces, and it will see what's your risk of diabetes, what's your blood sugar, and it will identify patients who are at risk and who have active problems developing. And then that way, the physician can actually reach out to them and deliver care before something happens, but they can target the people who are at risk. So it's become sort of like a physician extender. And India is now launching this in a few other jurisdictions, and it's starting to be used, more in more areas. I think it's going to really revolutionize healthcare in developing worlds and in places where there's a sort of a lower level of standard of care just because of economic constraints. This is a way of giving clinicians a much broader reach and access to preventive, predictive tools.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, I'd heard of the company, but I never really dug deep to see what they're actually doing until you have mentioned it now. And I think it's massive, really. It's the data you guys gonna receive and everything. It's also data that can also be shared and partnered up with other companies. So I wonder if also that's part of your business model to also kind of partner with other companies to say, okay, cool, we've got a our platform at digital sorry, Healthspan Digital is basically like the common marketplace for everyone looking at health data, and collect it into one place where people can come and
Yeah.
utilize everything. Is that part of your business
You
model?
got it.
Nice.
Exactly.
Nice.
So, AI Nexus is a remarkable company, and their technology is amazing. But we also have a few other software packages that we work with. One of them is a company called Longevity AI, which is based out of Tel Aviv, Israel. And longevity AI, also a massive amount of data. They have 20 years of data from two healthcare systems in Israel. And this data has been used to develop their tool. And their tool is more about behavioral analysis, and also can take in data from several other sources like wearables and blood work and biomarkers. So the tools, we're trying to actually bring them together with our own top level, and so this is where we're starting to employ a higher level, and we're going to be working with quantum. So I'm no quantum expert, but one of the things that we're doing is quantum annealing. We're trying to sort of work with multiple AI tools to optimize the sort of data that comes out from all of them, so that we have a top level, data analytics that can take advantage of the data and the analysis from all of these together. So and so that's exactly part of our plan, is to take the best tools and then combine them into sort of our own super tool, and all, as you said, take advantage of that data to be able to deliver the highest quality predictions and care to patients.
Nice. And then, if this is where we are right now, I guess a lot of people are thinking, okay, what you really said right now sounds futuristic. So, and this is already the current state of the industry. So the question is then, like, what are your thoughts on the current state of the industry and in terms of the future? What does the future hold for us in terms of personalized medicine? And obviously, feel free to go non-fiction if you want to. Like, it's an open question. So it'd be nice to hear
Okay.
your answer on that.
You got it. So, I first off, the future is here. I mean, this is happening now, and so it's not very far away. And I mean, you know as well as I do that the rate of change in technology is exponential, not linear. So we are at that inflection point. So these things are coming, and so the future. What I see is as individuals, our entire our life will be in our hand. In a simple interface, we will be able to analyze our own well-being at every moment and see the impact of things that we're doing, whether it's exercise or food that we're eating. We will be able to scan and identify every bit of food that we put in our mouth, and the effect it will have on our body. We will be told and directed on what kind of foods to eat to optimize our health, and that will be integrated with our healthcare. Healthcare systems. If you do have something that goes wrong, our hospitals, our healthcare systems, your physician, all of that data will be one, and it will also be in unison with your home. Your home will have a smart mirror, and the smart mirror will, on a day-to-day basis, you will be able to go in front of it. It'll scan you. I mean, this is like Star Trek. This is a tricorder. I mean, this will scan you, and it will identify, look, you have an area in your skin that's starting to become abnormal. It could be a skin cancer. You should go to your physician, get the following cream to apply to prevent that. Make sure you put on some sunscreen. Your toilets are gonna they're gonna sample your urine, and it will measure changes in proteins that will identify cancer before it happens. It will identify in your stool the bacteria, the microbiome, and say, the food that you're eating has changed your bacteria. You need to take in more of this or more of that type of fruit or vegetable to improve your bacteria. Bacteria in your intestine, by the way, is linked to all kinds of psychological and cognitive issues, depression, seizures, epilepsy, even skin disorders are related to bacteria in your stomach. So all of this, your toilet, your house, your air, your water, your workplace, your phone, your hospital, your healthcare worker, your all of it is going to be in one, and you're going to have that information at your fingertips. And I see a world, we've taken for granted now the gamification of so many things, right? I mean, most companies, they hire addiction experts, right? Because they want you to become addicted to their product, and they know how to do it. People play Candy Crush and whatever on their phone. They're addicted to that. We're going to be working to addict people to their own health. I want someone to really look forward to waking up and looking at their phone and saying, wow, my sleep score last night was amazing. And today I have the following two opportunities to exercise or be active. And that's going to, I'm going to feel healthier at the end of that. And at the end of the day, they'll check their phone and say, wow, look, I actually made a difference. My future risk has improved. That to me, that's a world where people have actually started to take responsibility for their own health. And I think that's the future of healthcare. And that's truly individualized healthcare. That's not just clinicians giving you as an individual health, it is you yourself doing it and following these principles and living a healthy life.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing, and I don't know, I don't know, I don't. There's nothing else I can ask. I mean, everything has been kind of said. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like living in a world where everything will be connected, and this is exciting. And as I said, I'll be putting like the link. For people who want to, read more, reach out to you. I'll be putting your contact details as well, like in the description of this episode. But yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Cory, for coming on the podcast today. I think it was quite educational and really exciting. And one question I think was one of my friends is probably going to ask me: are you guys hiring or building a team at the minute? Because it sounds like the future, and I think most people looking to really be really advancing their careers at the minute are looking to basically be on the front line of technology. So this is a question that one of my friends asked. I don't know if you'll be able to answer that.
It's a great question. You know, honestly,
Yeah.
at this point, I don't think that we're hiring, but we're looking at a significant amount of growth in 2025, and we will be doing some additional fundraising as well. So I know that we will be looking, and I suspect that the 2025 will be a year that we do look to build our team further. So certainly, I mean, healthspan.digital is the website. You can see our current founding team and some of our tools there, and feel free to reach out. We'll be growing, and I'm certainly happy to answer questions from anybody who's interested in hearing more about us.
Yeah, perfect. That's cool. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Rodney, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and you have a really good approach to this. I really love your podcast. This is a
Thank
great
you.
concept, and thrilled to be on. Thank you.